Hello, everybody. Sorry, give me a second. I am trying. Oh, here we go. I'm trying to make sure because for some reason, when I go public on my page, okay, give me a second. Should be good. Okay, so now it's streaming to my public page, the group, and to YouTube. So we have descended into absolute madness. And I'm doing this as a preface because Bobby, my co-founder, is going to join me in 45 minutes at 2 o'clock to explain to you why we conservative parents do not want this policy. Okay. But, so it's important to understand that even my ride or die, that when I start talking about this stuff, he too thought I was bonkers. But in making him and everybody else do the work, what he said at the school board meeting blew me away. He took a stand before I did because I had so much other stuff to cover. But I wanted to go through the whole process because there was a big process that led us here that many of you may or may not know about. So I'm not sure if many of you are aware, but there was a policy released in September. And because I was planning 2 shows at the same time with getting my kids out the door, let me real quick send those to myself so I can pull them up for you. One was released in September. If you did not know that, yes. And knowing this is extremely important. Knowing there was a joint commission on rulemaking, which I pulled several clips from, on our YouTube channel is the entire 3.5 mind-blowing that you must watch. Because if you want to see the evolution of how September, compare them side to side, September to July, with that shoved in the middle, and the clips that I'm going to show you will show you. And no, I did not get thrown out. The deputies were actually laughing at me because the problem when you have a Secretary of Education who only knows data mining in education, again, I'm going to tell you, data quality campaign, Amy Kadera, look it up. I'm really done with people not knowing who she is, especially when nobody acknowledges how much data they collect on our children. Anyway, is that you'll see the problem with that and the gaslighting and the lunacy that went on in this that pandered straight to Equality Virginia and ACLU, and then looking at the July policy and the difference. And this is all just leading up to my law brain, my Constitution brain. Let's get out of the Wild West. This is not how it works. To preface, because I want the show at 2 to be about Bobby and Bobby coming to understand on his own what I already knew was that, and we'll get to that at 2 o'clock, is that if you're not following, and I cannot tell you this enough, if you are not following education, if you are not digging in to education, if you are not listening, because it's what I do all day. And the difference between me, us, and everybody else out there, we're not making a dime off this. That's the difference. We're not getting paid. We barely break even, if we break even. So the things that's the difference. We're not doing this for relevance or to get paid. We're just trying to educate parents. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to send the new dignity policy. That's another thing, guys. And I'm going to repeat myself again. Children deserve the right to a whatever his link. That is not parental rights. Okay. That is UN child rights language. Even parents matter. Okay. Now that I look back on it, I'm like, no, that's not even, and we have to start questioning, because if you don't speak fluent Younganese, you better start, as I've said before. But we have an entire channel, if y'all don't know this, like entire channel. Like, this is not new. Okay. going through all of this, like breaking it down, what the law is, legislation I wrote, the video in front of Youngkin. Like, it's gotten to the point of lunacy, because how long do we have to talk about this? That there's a problem. Because I'm really tired of standing in the Blade vampire rave. Let me rub all the red what? Red what? It's madness. And, you know, people, Ty Turner, AFP, I hope you're watching. But if you don't realize that really the thumb that we're under is the Koch brothers, that's AFP, that's this new, what is it? The new voting thing that they're doing. I can't even remember. That's called I-360. That's Koch brothers. His new release yesterday about targeting Hispanics, that's called the Libre Initiative. That's the Koch brothers. So is that if you are full force that this is your man, because if I see one more post that talks about what an amazing governor he is, I'm going to lose my mind, because those people are either swamp swimming or they're clueless, or they don't care about education. And this is you can pass this along to your delegates, your senators, people that are running, is that education, again, must become the forefront. Because once these children are done, and if we continue to pander to the middle and accept that those of us that are still conservative are alt-right, the nation will burn 3 to 5 years. Nothing that you care about, 2A, abortion, whatever, will matter. So let me, I'm trying to, okay, send this, sorry. Okay, let me, so, just to give you so I'm going to show y'all real quick. Let me go to our YouTube channel and show you where you can go watch the entire JCAR hearing, which is extremely important. Now, I had to go ask a senator after this aired, after I was here, but now this was something that they didn't want anybody to know about. Okay, I will have to tell you, and they were shocked. So let me share screen. Okay, so this is our channel, and yeah, I've done a lot on here. Like, sorry if you don't like, but like, you want to know about education, like, take the time. So right after, this would have been 7 months ago, when I could not find the video because it had been pulled from the Joint Commission on Rulemaking. I did kind of a pre-show, but then once I finally got it up and running, so no, I don't hear again. I only talk for like 2 seconds, and then I literally just live streamed it so that it would be on public record. And so I talked for like 2 minutes, and then I hit live because I knew where it was, so that it would never go away into the oblivion. But here, this is what it looks like on our channel. This one. But this would be the people. This would be the pre-show. But is that, and I'm going to show you snippets because I know people get 3 hours. You get kind of, people can't process 3 hours, or it's just too much time. But okay, I'm sending these to myself again. So one, if you did not know that there was a September policy, it is extremely important that you know that there was a September policy. Because when you compare the two documents, which I need to send myself right now, pardon me for being unorganized, but this is the life when there are two of us trying to fix this world. You know, is that I know a lot of people, especially inside of the, let's say, special interest groups, who are supporting this document, who actually pulled us aside afterwards and completely agree that, yeah, this is really a bad idea. Bravo, you guys. I've had school board members in some of the most dumpster fire communities that have called and said, So watch in the days ahead, there will be conservative school board members in dumpster fire communities who do not vote for this. And the reason that it's important that we take a stand on this is because it's really the litmus test for what is good and what is bad is not based on what the liberal media is saying. So when the liberal media tells you this policy is going to destroy transgender children, this policy is going to, Youngkin is a horrible human being. Okay. Okay. The mainstream media is not the litmus test, like, for what is good and what is bad. Neither is Governor Youngkin. Okay. Is that before, and we pleaded with places like Spotsylvania before they did it last week. If you don't have the original Northam policy, adopting this is the most asinine thing, and I will be very clear about this, the dumbest thing, and they did it anyway. They didn't want to listen. Well, it's law. Well, it's law. It was law in 2020 when you didn't do it. Well, our policy right here that our friend wrote, our friend inside the administration wrote, says that with 18 different, which I'm going to let Bobby, he did an amazing job of dissecting those. When you have court cases and it's not clear what the policy is saying, if the policy is not saying straight children will have their bathrooms back, transgender children will have to opt out. Okay. First of all, if they cite 8 court cases and they're speaking blah, 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 and you read it and you're like, what in the world does that mean? Try to explain to these people they did it anyway. So I can't explain it. So if you're in a division that did not remove parental rights, that did not adopt co-ed bathrooms for all children, do not adopt this policy. Defy Governor Youngkin. Yes, because here's the thing. 10% of school districts adopted that policy. 10%. The Northern policy. Why? Because Sands Anderson, school board attorneys, told them they had to. That came from our school board member in front of Elizabeth Schultz, the deputy superintendent, that prior to public quorum. Anyway, they had been told they had to do this. Sorry, that violates a whole lot of stuff. But so let me, it's easier if I pull up these screenshots. Okay. Where are you? Where are you? You're the damn screenshots. Somebody send them to me. Oh my God. Did I erase them? Okay, I'll look on my, okay, how about this? I'm gonna look on my YouTube page because I know I have them in there. I mean, my personal page. So first, let's get to the JCAR hearing. Okay, so welcome to my Facebook page. So let's see. All right. So which one should we start with? These are all clips from the JCAR hearing. Okay. So I wish I'd ordered them, but let's see. And this is what's going to happen at 2 o'clock, by the way. And yes, it's on YouTube already. I pre-planned that ahead of time. Let's see which one this is.
And so I'd ask you to do 2 minutes, to limit your remarks to 2 minutes. We've
That's at the end. Hold on, sorry. Why is there no sound? Oh.
This would be under 22.1-23.3. This is.
So I want you guys to real quick imagine, as much as I know about law and the Constitution and how government works, sitting in this lunacy.
Case, this would be under 22.1-23.3.
I want to find
this is
delegate head. I think he's more this way.
In terms of parental notification and parental involvement.
23.3.
Sorry.
Clarification at this case. At this point, will the secretary then clarify that
statute, whether it complies with legislative intent, whether it will cause a substantial reduction in private sector employment?
Sorry, I'm going to get.
To do 2 minutes, to limit your remarks to 2.
Oh, there's me.
On this, I'll just quote a part from the Washington Post.
Oh my God. Rome.
Mr. Wheeler.
Okay. So this one here is the beginning. When God bless Delegate Head. Okay, you had Roxanne Robinson, there were multiple Republicans sitting up there. But Delegate Head from Botetourt went to bat not only once, not only twice, 3 times.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Head.
yes, before we even get started, I'd like a little clarification I don't know that I want to bring it as a point of order, but just, with JCAR's authorization in the Code of Virginia, giving us the authority to review existing agency rules or regulations and defining that as something that has the force and weight of law. And since what we're looking at with this particular issue is nothing more than a model policy that is still in the draft stages and not a regulation that is being promulgated, I'm wondering why this is even coming before JCAR, because it seems that it pretty clearly exceeds JCAR's authority in every way that I can see in code.
Well, Delegate Head, that's an issue I've thought a lot about. 30-73.1 of the Code of Virginia says that JCAR can review existing rules, agency rules, regulations, and practices, and agency rules or regulations during the promulgation or final adoption process and make recommendations to the governor and General Assembly, and defines rules and regulations as any statement of general application having the force of law affecting the rights or conduct of any person adopted by an agency in accordance with the authority conferred on it by applicable basic laws. My view, my ruling is that this is properly before JCAR. Now, you are correct that what JCAR can do is pretty limited. We can object to the implementation of a rule. We can object to a regulation. We can ask the governor to concur that it be suspended until the end of the next General Assembly session. We have a very limited authority on what we can do, but I think we can properly look at this. In respect of all students and parents.
So why this is important is because he kept talking about promulgating. Okay. He kept talking about law. Okay. This is not a law. A policy is not a law. Okay. It's very important to understand the difference. Let me pull up while I'm here. Ooh, close that out. Sorry. And that's a very important thing that people need to understand is that the law that was written, which by the way is right here. Okay. This would be HB 145. Okay. This is the law to which they continuously refer to. Okay. Is that if you look up, which by the way, don't even get me started on who voted for it. And it's identical to SB 161. Boys go figure. But anyway, so this is the law to which they continue to refer. Okay. Requires the Department of Education to develop and make available to each school board. Do you hear me? Because you're going to hear Rome later say different. Model policies concerning the treatment of transgender in public school and secondary schools that address common issues regarding transgender students in accordance with evidence-based practices. How many times have we covered evidence-based? What is that? It's everywhere. It never appeared before the rewriting of Every Student Succeeds, in which it appeared 68 times. And you can look up evidence-based means they found someone somewhere who said one thing in one city, one child, it helped. Literally, that's like tier 1 evidence-based. Best practices, okay? Best practices, okay? There are best practices regarding how we are notified as to all of our laws. Okay. Best practices are not law. Okay. We're talking law. This is the law. This is the law. Pass 2, it requires the Department of Education to develop and make available to each school board. Okay. Does not say, as Brum is going to say in a minute, shall adopt. Okay. Including information, guidance, procedures, and standards relating to compliance with applicable non-discrimination laws, maintenance of a safe and supporting learning environment free from discrimination and harassment for all students, prevention of and response to bullying and harassment, maintenance of student records, identification of students, protection of student privacy and the confidentiality of sensitive information, enforcement of sex-based dress codes, student participation in sex-specific school activities and events, excluding athletics and the use of school facilities. The bill requires each school board to adopt no later than the beginning of the 2021-2022 school year policies that are consistent with, but may be more comprehensive than such model policies developed by the Department of Education. That are consistent with, not identical to. Okay. So this is where we get into the law. Law says the Department of Education must develop and make available to model policies. Model policies. Just like social emotional learning. Model policies. Standards. Okay. They passed it. And so the reason is because when I first started talking about this, is that if you imagine the Board of Education being the school board, the Department of Education being the superintendent. That's why she's called the Superintendent of Public Instruction. That was Balo and is now Coons. That's why she's called the superintendent. Okay. Is that we have to understand here. So therefore, when the law is a law, but just like school board policies, if you did not know this, are up for revision at any time. Also, if you did not know, the standards of learning, you don't just have to revise them or every step. They're up for revision. That's per the Constitution of Virginia at any time. Okay. So that's what's important to understand is, so when I started talking about this, Republicans were like, well, he doesn't have the Senate. You're not paying attention. And they thought I was crazy then. No, they have to go rewrite the law. No, they don't. Watch. Voila. Here we are. So the law did not remove parents. The law did not require co-ed bathrooms. The law did not do any of this. The department, which is actually the board, because the department, just like the superintendent and everybody that works under the school board, has no constitutional authority. So just to really clarify that point, that they keep referring to the law. That's the law. The law did not remove parental rights. The law created broad stipulations. Sorry, Boy Scout. Sorry, Marcus B. Simon. You wrote a crappy law. This is why we stopped writing law, promulgating to non-elected boards. You write law, you write law. Even if somebody, when I wrote law last year, that's too long and nobody's going to read it. Go to other states and look at their laws. They have laws, like not broad things passed to a non-elected agency. So that's HB 145, 2020. And SB 161, 2020. That's the law. The law. Which is, you have to understand the law. So back to, I'm going to pull up just some clips. So thank you, Delegate Head, for going to back. Because I was sitting there going, the whole time I went there, I was there the whole time. I'm thinking, this is not what you do. So, let's see, I sent it to myself. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay, so one of the many laws regarding the Joint Commission on Rulemakings is revision of the Code of Virginia. Revision of the Code of Virginia. Okay, again, we're not revising the Code of Virginia. The Code of Virginia is not being revised. So it does not fall into, no matter how much Cree Deeds wants to tell you it does, it does not. Okay. So part of what they do is whenever during any session of the General Assembly there shall have been enacted any statute purporting to revise, rearrange, amend, or recodify any title of the Code of Virginia, such statute shall be deemed to have been enacted prior to the statute enacted at. So this goes to, again, I'm going to jump quickly. So that is, and you should probably, be really smart to go and review all of this, is that, again, the law codified. Okay, we are not recodifying anything. Let's go back to the law. Okay, the law is not being recodified. So Cree Deeds, this never fell into your purview, as Delegate Head tried to tell you. And so then think about this fact is these are the people that are responsible for town halls, if you know about them. And I will revert to the fact that when social emotional learning was brought up, 90%, so they want to talk about, 45,000 comments where don't do this. Well, here's the problem with that is that were we even offered for the original train? I don't remember the transgender model policy. We could have been. But here's my comment to that. First of all, you flew in your AstroTurf from all over the nation because you can comment on town hall. You don't have to prove you live here. You don't have to prove you do anything, anybody. So is that, and then I will point to the fact, if you go and you pull up the social emotional learning town hall, 90%, including counselors, including teachers, were like, do not do that. Hell, no. This is disgusting. Absolutely not. No. So these are the people that do town halls. This is the commission that does town halls. So then look back and think of, it's really interesting that they're forcing these comments to be relevant, but we can't ignore what they ignored, which would be things like the town hall. How much time do I have? Okay. So on that note, I'm just that's who these people are. And it is Lamont Bagby. It is Eben. It is Rome. It is Cree Deeds. Who am I missing? Who's he? Oh, Mamie Locke. Yes. And yes. Thank you, Lisa, for watching the JCAR video, as you probably did 6 months ago when I posted it. But so want to go back to, okay.
Children's interests have to be the first thing you consider. The child's interests has to be first.
And there, sir.
Okay, wait.
Mr. Chairman, there's also legal cases that say that also that the parents have a right to be involved in that and to balance those needs.
Okay, thank you. There may be other questions.
No, to the both of you. Both of you. No to the both of you. Okay. As I said at the school board meeting the other day, UN child rights, we are a sovereign nation, not a thing. Not a thing. So you better get firm in that language of, because, and then here's my comeback. Well, what about all of the teachers raping children? Because you stand in a guardianship role and you're allowing, and then you're covering it up and letting them pass the trash to other divisions. So that's my rebuttal to that. Your job is to protect them from us, but how many that you know about in the last year or two, special education children abused, covered up, sent to CPS found, no big deal, sent the kids back, the teachers back. Okay, we have to start thinking about this in the big scheme of things. But then Gadara, let me rewind what she said.
Mr. Chairman, there's also legal cases that say that also that the parents have a right to be involved in that and to balance those needs.
Can you imagine? The stock photos of me from this event are amazing, by the way. I was arguing the case. There are court cases that state, again, problem when you have a Secretary of Education who only data mines, but no, parental rights. Let me pull up my school board. Let me break this down for you if you haven't heard. This is how you need to understand, as I said before, many times, especially recently, how to argue. If they came for your guns and your division was to say, give me your guns, you would know how to fight that, correct? So the fact that we live in a division here, Chesterfield, the 10%, that freely allowed school, and if I'd known all of this 2 years ago, this would have been a different process, but yeah, here we are. Okay, let me explain this to you. I will read it for you. My children and I have a bond you can and will never supersede. They were born of my body and are thus an extension of my body. Human gestation is not completed at 9 months, although physical gestation is over at birth. After birth, a prolonged period of psychological, moral, and intellectual growth must take place before a mature human being is formed. That is my job. We, the people, do not give birth for the government to then claim ownership for the common good of society. You read that a lot if you read an education. And if you read that as, okay, no, stop it. This is not a Handmaid's Tale yet. We are not the Republic of Gilead yet. And we do not produce children for the government to then control. And then I did a summary. If you haven't read or seen The Handmaid's Tale, the United States Constitution is suspended, newspaper censored, and what formerly the United States of America has changed to the military dictatorship known as the Republic of Gilead. The new regime moves quickly to consolidate its power, that's called fascism, overtaking all religious groups, including Christian denominations. Just thought I would throw that summary in there because this should be ringing 1984, Handmaid's Tale, Hunger Games with The Giver is where we are. We're just kind of like teetering at the Hunger Games portion. But let me break down parental rights, Gadara, because I was losing my mind. Several court cases have no. Okay. Yes. 100 years of Supreme Court cases. That is extremely important. It is extremely important to understand common law and how it affects what we do today, because they're just looking at it like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to erase that. No. Common law comes from English common law. Not going to get into that. Maybe Ted and I can do that on our show. But let me break this down for you. Okay. The United States Constitution does not explicitly mention parental rights. Like other legal principles at the time of the nation's founding, The right of parents to direct the education and upbringing of their children was an implicit and necessary assumption of society. That parents had a God-given duty as well as the right to make all decisions with respect to the future of their unemancipated children was part of the higher law that the Declaration of Independence termed the laws and nature and of nature's God. So how did we get here with these people? By ignoring the fact that God is the foundation of this nation. That's how we got here. So for more than 1,000 years, the doctrine of parental rights has been the bedrock principle of the Western legal tradition, expressed throughout the common law. This common law was eventually incorporated by reference, that would be Supreme Court cases. Modern proponents of parental rights look not only to common law, but also to several key provisions of the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights. Okay, we're talking the Bill of Rights. This is not this is the Bill of Rights from the Constitution of the United States of America, where we still live, the freest nation in the world for now. These include the religious liberty and free speech provisions of the First Amendment, the due process and liberty provisions of the Fourth, Fifth, and 14th Amendment, which both policies seem to kind of fuzzy up. But that would be due process. Every parent in the state of Virginia that had their parental rights removed, giddy up, because a policy is not going to give those back to you if you think adopting this, oh, well, it's going to protect our children. If you need a policy to protect your parental rights and you think that this policy is going to do that, no, sir. No, ma'am. Okay. That's called get on board, civil rights, grand jury, it's coming. And the limitation on federal interference in the family that would be the necessary result of a government bound by the strictures of the 10th Amendment. Guys, we are living in an unconstitutional world because we're under federal education, not constitutional. People fail to realize that when drafting the Bill of Rights, the framers specifically addressed those rights that had been challenged by the Crown during colonial days. Amendments such as the third, which prohibits the quartering of troops in private residencies, may appear to be mostly of historical significance. Yet even with this provision, one finds the simple principle that agents of the state should hold sanctity of the home inviolable. Keep that in mind when they come knocking at your door wanting to do teacher home visits. Your Fourth Amendment, that is your last reserve. Like, do not let them, they don't have a warrant. They don't have police, they don't have signed documentation. Do not let anybody, I don't care if Head Start, because that's the new thing, Head Start, they're doing home visits. Is that, here's where we go. Okay, if the Constitution, if a law violates the Constitution of Virginia, the law is unconstitutional. Okay. And especially if it violates the Constitution of the United States, that's where we are. So I don't care if you say your policy says that teachers must do home visits. Well, I'm so sorry, but that violates the Fourth Amendment. You may not enter into my house. Thank you. Goodbye. The Third Amendment, quartering of troops. Thus, the fact that the Constitution does not explicitly mention parental rights does not mean the framers considered them of little consequence. In fact, the opposite was true. Parental rights were the functional equivalent of the right to breathe. I did not make this up. This all came from researching hundreds of years of how this nation was formed. The right to breathe. A right so obvious and fundamental as to be unnecessary to mention. But just in case future generations might have doubts, the framers ratified the Ninth Amendment. which states the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by people. In sum, parental rights have long been recognized as implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. And I'm going to cut that off there. And the funny thing is that, do you know where I got the majority of that summary? Ted, you're going to fall out. The Association for the ASCD, the association, now that is a prime propaganda spewer now, but circa 1997, that beautiful summary in part came from the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. Ted, tell me how you feel about that. ASCD, summarize that. Whoop. So when that comes from the people who oh yes, way, Ted. Ted said, no way. Oh yes. That beautiful summary of parental rights came from the ASCD. Thank you, 1997. So I'm sorry, you develop your curriculum from whom? They're telling you what now? Okay, well, here you go. Here's where in 1997, they summed it up perfectly right here. So I got to get off because Bobby's coming on. I'm trying to pick which one of these gaslighting videos to show y'all. Okay, let's do this one. I'm just going to roll through them. If they're not in order, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Section 22.1, 23.3 sets forth the 2020 legislation. Don't you agree that what you're trying to do basically undermines the code section?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question. No, not at all. We believe deeply, as I'm looking at it right now on here, and we've studied a great deal as this policy was being put together, is that what we are reinforcing is that all of this, that parents are so fundamental to the well-being of their students, and for as research-based and evidence-based, are critical to the long-term success of their child's success in school and their well-being and their health and well-being, that parents must be part of the process. And that's in law, and it's also widely agreed, and the evidence backs it up.
I agree with you. Parents are
widely agreed. Y'all can fire her now because I'm tired of hearing, does he have bad leadership? Does he? Yeah, but he's not stupid. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Secretary had mentioned before in terms of parental notification and parental involvement. Is the Secretary aware that my predecessor in 2017 introduced HB 1612, which specifically stated, quote, the principal of a public school attended by a child shall notify the child's parent, guardian, legal custodian, or other person having control or change of a child.
I gotta fast forward.
So, Mr. Chairman, then I would ask, Mr. Chairman,
I was not, Mr. Chair Delegate, I am not sure of the question.
she just
56 to 34 Republican majority rejected that bill with that specific language in 2017.
Mr. Chair Delegate, I am not sure of the question.
I just want to emphasize to you guys what it felt like being in this room real quick, okay? It was like being in the Hunger Games when Donald Sutherland comes on, and there were screens over top of us, and it was just room. Like, I mean, it looks like there's one here. They were literally like over top of us. They were all around, and it was like Donald Sutherland, you know, all in like the preaching down, like, but
she's just asking if you're aware of Delegate Marshall's bill from 2017 that basically would have.
See, he knew first off. She cited a bill from 2017. Tell me this isn't planned. That he knew Delegate Marshall. He knew exactly what she was
done
talking about.
A lot of what your policy's doing.
Everything. Mr. Chair Delegate, that I was not present at that point and am not intimately familiar
But again, who cares what was done in 2017?
with all the details, but I will be.
So, Mr. Chairman, then I would ask, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the Secretary, and that given that the
This is when I yelled, what is this, tag team?
Secretary is unaware of existing precedent.
Okay, I'm just going to cut it off right there. Okay, Guys, I don't know if y'all what precedent is, but a law being introduced 7 years ago, coming up on 7 years ago, and Republicans deciding not to pass it is not precedent. Precedent is set in courts of law. One more and then I gotta go. Let's see which one. Okay. No, I'm not gonna go that one. No. Okay. This one is important because I want you guys to understand is that this was the same day that the Reggie, energy one was heard first. Took 4 hours. And they all got their full 3 minutes. And then they let Equality Virginia, the ACLU, have each watch the 3-hour video. It took them 30 minutes to get their computer running, to which their cited evidence was comments from town hall. Okay. And then when it got to our turn, this is what happened.
Except we've got a lot more people that want to speak, both for and against. And so I'd ask you to do 2 minutes, to limit your remarks to 2 minutes. We've had a ton of stuff coming here and
Mr. Chair, I do
Again, bravo, delegate head here.
have a question for you on this. We did hear from 2 groups here in obvious strong opposition to this. Was there an opportunity given for any group that was in support of
there was an
policy?
opposition for weeks to try to get somebody from the administration here. And it wasn't until this morning that I found out that Mr. Wheeler would be here with Secretary Gadara.
But there was a.
You can hear me there because Family Foundation was there and Virginians for Children's First was there. So that was me in the background going, no, actual parents.
Well, but as far as any of the parents groups or any groups that might have been in support of this that could have brought testimony, were they afforded the opportunity today?
They can give public comment.
So they were limited to public comment, but not given the affordability of.
Right. We tried to get somebody from Secretary Gadara. We tried to get somebody from the administration.
No.
That's not really the question, Mr. Chairman. Just we've had outside groups from the administration, outside groups from the legislature be able to voice vocal and very well thought out and prepared statements that were afforded a large amount of time.
And if anybody wants to submit something in writing, they can do it.
But they would not be afforded the opportunity to be a part of the official presentation here as was afforded the other folks.
They can make public comment.
So discrimination is fine for the other side.
Amen. Amen. Because do you know what it's like to sit through all of that and then have your 3 minutes? 3 minutes cut down to 2 minutes after all those people got hours to stand up there, and you want to tell me there's not a problem? Which I'm going to then close with this.
The World Professional Association for Transgender Health or the for Children First. First, you can look up the World Professional Association for Transgender Health or the U.S. Professional Association for Transgender Health, where Dr. Laura Leeper said that 99% of the time the removal of parents from this conversation is a bad idea, and it almost never turns out well. So there are other people that don't have a political agenda that have actually gone through transitioning and are responsible adults who have opinions on this, who I've spoken with. Dr. Erica Garden, look her up, or you're more than welcome. It's
Taylor, by the way. I had a mind fart that day.
hard to find me. So first of all, I'm in Chesterfield County, the division that nobody talks about, with 63,000 children who had this policy adopted. Delegate Robinson, you should pay attention. Verbatim.
Because Delegate Robinson was like, she explained it, and I will maybe go through this with Bobby because I got to jump off.
Okay. Verbatim. This is what a student support plan with the elimination of parents looks like. Asking a child, it will not be kept, or I'm sorry, as a student request, school personnel should work together with the student to develop a plan that meets the student's needs. And then it goes on to say, are the parents aware? Are they affirming? Do the parents participate? Okay, if not, who are your supportive adults? I didn't have 4 miscarriages and give birth to a stillborn son and have a miracle 5-year-old for you to determine on your whim, that you think that just because one or two parents might be bad parents or might not support their children, that all of a sudden you think that I'm not going to be. That's not what parenting is. Yeah, you can put your 30-second sign down. In what sense is it defensible to hold that children are competent to make life-changing decisions that are irreversible, the consequences of which will be with them for the rest of their lives, in which case might not be necessary at all and simply reflect a lifestyle choice, which in itself might be a passing fad? What children need is guidance, support, and protection. This should come from primarily their parents and also those in loco parentis. That is
2 minutes.
You don't get to take the rights without the responsibilities. You want to be the parent, then you take everything that comes along with it. You don't send them home with their problems. You don't get to be the parent. You didn't give birth to them. And Creedy, this is the reason why we need term limitations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Virginians for children.
So I was so mad at him, you could tell. Creedy's, you are exactly why. But I've got to jump back on with Bobby, and we're going to dissect more into how we got here. But I hope that helps set the preface a little bit.